going on, everybody? JR from JrZ CarZ here, and today on this beautiful November day we're going to be putting rear rotors and pads on this 2014 Honda Odyssey. So stay tuned and I'll show you how. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be replacing the rear pads and the rear rotors on this Honda Odyssey. The procedure itself would work for any Honda Odyssey from the year 2011 to 2017. So we're going to dig into this thing. We'll take a look at how bad these brakes are because they are really bad. They're grinding like hell here. And I'll show you how it is. So let's get at it. So like I've said in a bunch of my other videos before, you want to make sure that when you're working on your car, you're doing it safely. You want to be able to enjoy working on your car and taking care of a problem and not going to the hospital afterwards to take care of an injury because you weren't paying attention to what you're doing and you got injured. So, of course, like anything else, first thing you're going to do, you want to take your wheel off, but you want to have your jack. You want to have a jack stand underneath the car. You want to have the front tires chalked up if you're working in the back. If you're working on the front, you want to chalk up your back tires. And most importantly, you want to set that e-brake. Okay, so now that we have that all set and we got the lug nuts off the wheel, we're going to go and take this tire off and see what we're working with here. Ooh. Yeah, I'd say she's pretty bad. So, all right, well, let's get this set up. We'll start taking this all apart and we'll see what the pads actually look like, because if the rotor looks this bad and grooved like that, I could only imagine how bad the pads are. All right, so now that you saw that there, basically what we're going to end up doing is there's a Phillips head screw that has to come out of here, out of the rotor. So I already hit it with some penetrating fluid, so hopefully this is going to come out easy. Sometimes they don't. So what I like to do is I like to take my Ryobi, I'll get in there and I'll try to hit it and see if the vibrations will knock it loose. And it did. Perfect. And there it is. Alright, so next step here is we got two 12mm bolts on the back side of the caliper. So we'll knock those free. And those will come right out. And you want to get in here and just pull this caliper out of the way, which is going to be a pain because I can already tell these pads are screwed. All right. So, pop that here for now. Let's take a look at how terrible these pads are. What pads? Oh my God. Well, the back one still has something on it. Sort of. All right, let's get this rotor off. Okay, if you take a look in the back here, what you're going to see is you're going to see this bolt here and this bolt here. The bolt's 17mm, and that's what's going to take this caliper bracket off. After you take the caliper bracket off, you can get that rotor out of your way. I make sure I get some lube on there. And then I'll get my BFH and I'll just give it a tap enough to where it starts loosening up, and then finish off with my hand. Now you have your caliper bracket out of the way. So one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a look at your caliper guide pins here. You want to make sure that they are free floating, that they're not binding up and they're not seized. Because if these are seized, you have to pull them out. You're going to sand them down, and you're going to repack them with grease. It's always a good measure to take them apart anyway and clean them out and repack them with some new good grease, so that way make sure that that caliper slides good. Okay, so each car is a little bit different. I did misspeak before a little bit. I actually wouldn't say that I misspoke. It was more or less just making sure that the safety is there. You have your brake, you have your emergency brake on. Well, in this, the emergency brake is inside the rotor here. So what I did was I left the emergency brake on while I was doing everything here. I just took the emergency brake off, because if you leave it on, you're not getting this rotor off. So I did that already. Gave this little tap. And there it is. So the inside of the rotor doesn't look that bad. The outside is definitely horrible. He's got some girth to him. So let's take a look. While we're in here, we could take a look at what these emergency brake pads look like, which they look like they're in decent shape. Everything in here looks good. All right, so what we'll do here is we're going to unpack the new rotor and the new pads, and we'll start prepping the caliper bracket here. So that way, what we're going to do is we're going to end up replacing the hardware that's in here. These slide the caliper hardware. So that way, when the pads go in there, they're going to slide nice and good. Basically, all you have to do here, let me just get you out of the sun there so I can see, right? You just get your screwdriver underneath it, and you're going to pop these guys out. All right, that's one. There's the other. That's it. Now what you want to do is you want to take a little bit of like emery cloth or something along that. You're going to clean this up real good, and then you put your new hardware in there. You put a little bit of grease in here. You'll pack this with your pads, and then it's ready to be put back on. All right, so here's what that looks like with the hardware in there. What you really want to do is you want to take, when you put these on there, you want to take a screwdriver, and you really want to push these into the corners and make sure that this is pushed out well too. All right, so here we are with the fully loaded caliper bracket. I realized before that I had these oriented wrong, so I corrected that. So these are good. This is ready to go. Now what we need to do is grab the caliper. We need to compress the caliper piston, and then we'll be able to put all this back together. Okay, so one of the first things you want to do is get this set up here, right? So I like to take one of the old pads and put it on there just so you can compress them. Some rear rotors require a special tool to where it'll twist and push the caliper piston back in. This one isn't like that. It'll just squeeze back together, so you shouldn't have a problem. But what you should do is you should go up to the front of the car to the master cylinder and just take a look and see how much fluid you have in there. If, as you can kind of see, the piston is really out there. It's because the pads were so worn out, the piston's really far out. So you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of fluid in the master cylinder, because as you're compressing this, the fluid's pushing back into the master cylinder. So with the fluid pushing back into the master cylinder, you might overflow it and you'll have a mess underneath the hood. So if when you're in the front there, you want to take a look and see what you have. If you need to extract a little bit out, you can extract a little out so it doesn't overflow. Okay, so under the hood here, you can see this is the master cylinder. So what you're going to do is you're going to open that up. You're going to take a look inside, see where your fluid level is. And if there's a lot of fluid in here, you're basically going to want to suck some of it out so it doesn't overflow and get all over everything underneath here. But basically, This is all that it is you're going to compress it. You're going to twist your C-clamp and push that caliper, the piston and the caliper, all the way back in. And just take your time with it. No need to rush. Just do little by little. And you don't need to clamp down too hard on it. Just enough to where it gets to the end and it's pushed all the way in. And then you just back off of it, take it all apart, and you're ready to put this all back together. All right, we got our rotor back on. And as you can see, I also put that screw back in it, so that's all in there. This is tight, it's not going anywhere. It's free, it's not binding up on the emergency brake. So we'll get the caliper bracket back on, which is this here. We're gonna put this back on, bolt it back down. We're gonna put the caliper back on, and I'll come back when I have everything set. All right, so there it is. We got the rotor, caliper, the pads back on. Everything looks to be in good order. Basically, what I did was I just went inside the car. I pumped the brake a couple times just so it would expand the caliper a little bit, and it would draw that fluid back out to the caliper. This side's done, 50% complete. Now it's time to do the other side. Don't forget, take the little cap for the emergency brake cover there off and put it into the new rotor. Done. All right, everyone, so there you have it. That's how you replace the rear pads and discs on a 2011 to 2017 Honda Odyssey. The next thing that you have to do, most important, is you have to go out and you have to bed in the brakes, right? So usually what I end up doing is I'll get in the car. Obviously you want to pump the brake first to make sure that you collapse that caliper so the pads are close to the rotor, because if you don't, you're gonna put it in the gear and the car is gonna take off on you before you actually get that hard pedal. So do that first. Go out, go take it for a spin. Usually what I'll end up doing is I'll do a couple small low speed, not very heavy on the brake pedal stops, because that'll wear down that coating that's on there. You want to make sure that it's going to bed the brakes in really nice. So you take that coat when you first do those slow speed ones. It's going to take that coating off around the contact area of the pad to the rotor. Then what I'll end up doing is I'll do a couple of those, like 25 mile an hour to almost stop. I'll do that 3-4 times, and then I'll progressively get a little higher speed, and I'll get a little more aggressive with the pedal. So I'll get up to about 45 miles an hour. I'll do a slower braking, and then I'll do 45 miles an hour, a little heavier braking, 45 miles an hour, really heavy braking, and that'll push those pads into the rotor and bed them in there really nice. So after you're done with that, you're good to go. So if you like this kind of content, do me a favor, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, because I have a lot more of this stuff coming up for you. I have my Pontiac Torrent. I'm going to be doing a full front end rebuild on. I already did the struts in that. You can take a look up there and take a look and see how that went. I have control arms. I have inner and outer tie rods. I have these sway arm end links. Those are all going to get replaced next. So like I said, consider subscribing to the channel, because I have a lot more how-tos, tips and tricks, car reviews. And I also have that 73 Beetle that I showed you guys. We're going to do a will it start video on that. So like I said, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you guys in the next video.